Welcome back to the This American Ride podcast, where we talk about issues that affect you, the average American. What's up? Welcome back to the show. We are about time I hit the record button. We've been sitting here bullshitting for a hot minute. I'm George. I'm here with Burt, and today we've got Sam, Superman of NJ, hanging out with us here in the studio.
Everybody. Excited to be here, as always.
Yeah. It's good to have another guest.
Always good to have guests. Is this your first time on a podcast?
Yes, it is.
First time in a podcast studio. That's very official.
Like an actual recording, not live stream, all that stuff. Yeah.
This is it.
Well, nice. Welcome. Thanks for coming, hanging out with us for a little bit.
Happy to be here.
We figured we'd have you on because we know you like to talk, and that's what podcasts are all about.
Yeah, I do like to talk, my friends.
Jabbering. So, and I think George has a plan for you today.
I hope so.
He says George has a plan. Like, people don't know. Like, just like 2 minutes ago, you're like, so what's the plan? What'd you give him? And I said, I gave Sam nothing.
He gave me nothing.
Sam's got
We'll
no
figure it
idea.
out.
We're shooting from the hip here today.
Actually, this might be one of the first. We usually have a plan, notes, and things to talk about, and today is just kind of like, well, Sam's coming on, so we'll just wing it.
Yeah, we'll just go with it. We were supposed to have Bri here. Bri's probably listening to this now on his drive to work on Friday, but Bri could not make it with us here tonight.
Yeah,
So you don't have like a fancy like written up like bio about Sam, like an introduction type of thing.
This is not Joe Rogan. I don't know what you're.
Does he do
I'm
that?
really
No,
upset
actually,
about that.
I've never even seen the beginning of one of his podcasts.
I don't think Rogan does that. I don't even think you know who Rogan's guest is until like 40 minutes in when Rogan's done talking about himself.
But everybody likes to hear about that, though.
That is not the way to get famous, ripping on Rogan, bro.
Ripping on Rogan. He runs the podcast world.
It does.
So,
like Rogan.
well, our buddy Sam, who we got acquainted with the one day, Burt sent me this picture of this white Road Glide, and he goes, "This guy follows us on Instagram, or we follow this guy on Instagram, or something like that." And here's the bike, and that was the first I heard of Sam, and then we ran into each other a while later at the Prohibition Bar.
Yeah, I do remember going back to that first day. I think I was going to say something to you because you looked familiar, and then I didn't. And then by the time I went to go grab my drink or bag of chips or whatnot, I turned around, you're gone. And then you had posted that picture.
Yeah.
And I was tagged in. I was like, it was him.
Yeah. So I was with the wife at Wawa, our local Wawa, and we come out and there's a Road Glide sitting there, and obviously we had the channel. And I saw it, and obviously it stood out because of your stickers on your windshield. That's what I saw. The sticker.
What did that sticker say?
It said, what is it, hashtag? Did it say hashtag? Hashtag this bagger Fs. But it wasn't
Wait,
just
so you
F.
can't curse on a podcast?
Oh, you can.
You can.
I'm just a nice guy.
His sister
That was in
listens to
the
this.
My
that was in the
sister
very
listens.
young stages though of the white Road
Yeah.
Glide.
So I was like, oh, that's funny. And Carolyn, I was like, hold on, I want to get a picture of this. So I went over and I took a picture. And then she's like, well, why don't you wait and see? I'm like, no, I don't want to sit around here waiting until the guy comes out. I'm like staring at his bike like some tool, like sweating his bike. So I was like, no, let's go. So we left. And then I posted something. I posted it or whatever and on Instagram. And then someone we know was like, I know that bike.
Yeah, Big Red sent me something.
Yeah. Well, it was his
That was
wife.
mutual.
Yeah, his wife commented that, Mel commented that, I know that bike. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, it's so-and-so. I'm like, we didn't know you at that time. So I was like, okay. And then I don't know what happened. Well, I don't know what the next step of meeting you was.
We ran into him at the infamous bike night at Prohibitions.
Yeah, the infamous.
The guy got mad at me for filming in public. Fucking tool.
Almost had a throwdown. Because if you guys don't know this, if you're not big motorcycle people and you're not here for the motorcycle content, you're not apparently allowed to take pictures or video of people's bikes at a bike night.
Doesn't make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me.
No,
People
it
try to
doesn't make
explain
any
it,
sense.
like even the hardcore people try to explain it to me, and it just
It made sense. I feel
You
like.
come to a bike night for people to look at your bike.
Well, it's not that. I feel like it might have made sense in like 1982, but your plate, like these cops, they don't even need to be behind you to see a plate anymore. It's not like they're tracking.
It's so weird.
It's
man.
not like the state police are watching Baggers and Brews on YouTube going,
yeah.
like 3 weeks ago that bike was at the Prohibition Bar. Like,
I think it's just something.
But
for
I
them
drive
to-
my car and my bike all the time down the road, and thousands of people get to see my license plate.
Yeah.
yeah.
Why don't I have a washcloth covering it for that? But I do for pictures on the internet. Like, why?
I do love that when you
Like,
you
what's?
put the
I don't get
rag.
it. Like, you could. All kinds of
over
people
the
see my
plate.
license plate.
I feel like we used to do that. Like when we first started YouTube, I would try and like block out plates and stuff like that. And after a while, I was like, screw that. It's just
People
not
still
over.
do it when they post pictures.
Yeah.
They block out their
I
plate.
mean, I got a
just like,
specialty plate so people do see it. So I want to show it
Take
off.
a picture of my cool plate, guys.
Cool plate, bro.
You need a new specialty plate now.
Yeah, so one thing led to another. We, met up, hit a couple of bike nights or whatever, and just kind of started hanging out. Man, cool.
Best friends for life, baby.
BFFs. So, yeah. So now now he's helping us out with this this event that we told you guys about last week, and we get together to ride. He comes over for family taco night.
Yep. Love the taco nights.
Yep. We had a big event planning session this weekend
Yeah,
at the.
That went pretty well.
it did go well.
It did go well. Burt got a lot of notes.
I got all my notes.
Did have a lot of notes.
I do. I know exactly who you have to follow up with that we need answers from. Again, if you guys weren't listening last week, we're doing a big charity event in July, the 13th. If you are someone in the tri-state area here in Jersey that has a business and you do any kind of vending at local fairs or any of that, and you're interested, hit us up at baggersandbrews@gmail.com or thisamericanride1776 and you can be a part of it.
Yeah, and it's right now we've got an awesome raffle going off with the.
How many entries have you got for that?
Not enough.
Not enough. Never
No?
enough. We have some. We do have some.
We have only like 5 or 6 so far.
5 or 6 people, but more tickets sold than that.
Yeah,
So
more
'cause some
money
people,
than that.
some people bought
Who
multiple
bought
tickets.
the most tickets?
Well, so one guy
exactly
we know, flipping the blue was it
Blue Mule,
was?
yeah.
I think that's who it was. He had just went in and made a donation right before we announced this, so that he sent me a message. It was like, hey, can mine be as part of that? So I'm like, yeah, sure.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So he had donated like $500.
That's a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got what, 20, 25?
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't do the math.
Something like that. But
A couple other people, there's donations, but we still have a lot of time. We're only like a weekend to have announced it. So we will be pushing it like drug
Hardcore.
pushers on the Instagram and Facebook.
There's still a lot of time. That's the good thing about jumping the gun, and getting right to it.
still a lot of time, and we've got a lot of other stuff that we are going to be raffling off, and that we've got a bunch of stuff in this week that we have to put together, but we're trying to get as much attention going to the Iron Horse, which is an awesome hotel just outside of Sturgis.
Have you been there personally?
I have not been to this hotel.
I've seen pictures of it. It looks awesome.
Looks awesome.
No, it looks like a cool spot. We have not been there. I mean, we've only been to Sturgis once together. And
Yeah.
Do they have the bike parking next to your room? Which one's that?
I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think there is
It
bike
has
parking near the
garage,
room. It's
right?
not that's on the isn't that
There's
that's
one
on
in
Route
Tennessee.
66.
There's one in Tennessee that does that too.
Okay, the one I'm thinking of is on Route 66. I know it had that
That's in North Carolina.
Blue Swallow.
Yeah. What's it called? I don't know the name of it.
The place you're thinking of is in North Carolina. It's right in the Maggie Valley, and I forget the name of that place. So
I feel like it's like Iron something.
it is Iron something, and there's a famous biker bar there called Iron something in the Maggie Valley, and both of those are close to like the Wheels Through Time Museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quick disclaimer. Everybody knows we usually don't talk a lot of motorcycle stuff on this channel. This is separate from Baggers and Brews, but we'll probably talk a little bit about it tonight just because of our guest. So just be prepared for that.
The big dumb idiot only knows motorcycles.
That's not true. That's not true. You know a lot about package delivery.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
true.
You need to,
And tight shorts.
you know something about some tight shorts. I'll tell you that.
What can Brown do for you? Same here, straight from work. It's that's good stuff. Well, while we're talking about Sturgis, while we're talking about our event, let's take a quick minute and hear from the sponsor of this podcast, who is also one of the sponsors from our event coming up. What's up, everybody? I just wanted to take a minute to tell you about the sponsor of today's podcast, Legendary USA. Their selection of leather and denim jackets, vests, gloves, chaps, and riding shirts are 100% made in the USA with a lifetime warranty. Legendary USA isn't just about style, it's about quality. With American-made products and a commitment to excellence, you can trust that you're getting gear that's built to last. Legendary USA isn't just for bikers. They have a full selection of shirts, hoodies, EDC, tactical, and survival gear, all made here in the USA. And here is the best part. Legendary USA is offering our listeners an exclusive deal. When you shop at legendaryusa.com and use the promo code LegendaryPod, you'll get 15% off on your first purchase. That's legendary with a D and pod for podcast. So why settle for ordinary when you can be legendary? Click that link in the description to head on over to legendaryusa.com to explore their fantastic range of products and use the promo code LegendaryPod to snag your 15% off discount today. Now back to the show, and thank you for Legendary USA for supporting this podcast.
Yup.
Yeah. So I have a real beef with package delivery companies.
Me too.
Do you?
Yeah. Who's your beef with?
This is my mostly with FedEx, because I find, and this is no knock on the UPS, but one of the companies that I worked with in the past, obviously this stuff is contractual, and they had a contract through FedEx, and we would ship these boxes that are tall boxes. So if I needed something like priority or overnight, it would be like almost $450 shipping. People don't realize that.
Easy.
But so it'd be say $400 shipping, priority first overnight, right? And then it doesn't come priority first overnight.
Yeah.
Because that should be by like 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or depending on where you're at. And then this package doesn't show up to like 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know that is because I'm the person who ordered it, and I'm sitting there waiting for it. Mm-hmm. In most cases, that's not the case. And they're charging people what I think is an astronomical amount of money for a service that they're not even.
Yeah, I just ordered.
They're not delivering on
my one little motorcycle part. So I called. What's today? Wednesday. I called Monday, got SBC to overnight it to me. So he sends me the email right away, tracking, and this was like 4:30. Sends me the tracking information. Going to be there Tuesday by 10:30. Tuesday, I'm waiting because I was going to give it off to Dan to powder coat for me, and nothing. And then today comes, your package was delivered. So the total was $145. I probably spent $80 for shipping and got it in 2 days, which if I would have paid $30 for 2 day shipping, I would have got it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep. So I feel like we're all the same, because people bitch and moan about FedEx, UPS, Amazon, DHL. They're all.
Yeah.
It's personally me. If I ship something, I ship it FedEx, just because it's cheaper. Wow. And as far as FedEx is concerned, whenever I'm like tracking a package, it'll say Friday, it'll be a Monday, and it'll get to me on like a Wednesday or Thursday. Whereas UPS, if you see your tracking, it's supposed to be shipped on or get to you on Wednesday, it'll come Thursday or Friday. It's just that.
Do you want us to edit this part out? You're gonna be all right when you get to work.
Big FedEx guy.
What's funny is
more.
I just like my UPS guy better. Like the UPS guy here, it's always the same guy for one with UPS, and UPS always brings stuff up to the house.
Yes, that's one thing we know how to deliver
UPS
packages.
always brings stuff.
What does
up to the
FedEx
house.
do with your stuff?
They leave shit by the mailbox, by the park bench. They'll leave stuff down by the road, and they'll do
That's
it.
because your driveway sucks, bro.
I don't care. That's not your job. Your job is to deliver it to the house.
Their job isn't try to navigate that disaster of a narrow driveway.
Not my fault they can't drive. And they'll do it. What pisses me off is the last time they did it, I was out front of the house.
Oh yeah.
And there's no way he didn't
give you
see
a wave?
me. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Here's your package.
You're so angry.
Yeah, I do. I get mad.
So angry.
I was answering emails today like I was Burt, so I got to be like I got to be angry, and they thought I was Burt. It was like the perfect world.
You signed your name, dude. That was nicer than I was gonna. I don't know. That guy's getting on my nerves. So just to go back in the history of Sam, Superman, and NJ, when did you start riding, and what got you into riding?
So I always wanted to ride, except my parents were completely anti two wheels. They're one of the families, especially my dad, was the day you buy a motorcycle is the day that you're not under my roof anymore. He's like, because they're so dangerous. So he's like, I'm not going to bury my son because he made a stupid choice. He'd let me ride quads. I grew up on quads. So I didn't really think about two wheels like dirt bikes and stuff. A couple of my buddies had them, and they had the smaller versions, like the 50 or the 100 cc models. And I would tinker on them every now and then, but again, they had no power. So it was just like, it never really like stuck out to me like, oh, I got to be on two wheels. And we even live in an area where riding is like, you always hear motors, especially weekends during the summer. That's all you hear. If you go to the Piccolilli or any of our local hotspots, you're always going to see a motorcycle. And even then, it really wasn't appealing to me. And I went to college because baseball was my big thing. That was my passion. So again, the whole quad, motorcycle, dirt bike stuff never really like appealed to me. I wanted to play professional baseball. So that was really my mindset. And ended up hurting myself coming back home. And I got a job at a gym just to pay some bills and stuff and whatnot and kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And the guy that worked at, what was before Stars and Stripes Harley? What was it called?
Brian's.
So their general manager actually lived in Medford and he worked out at the gym. Me and him became friends, but he never tried to sell me a motorcycle or whatnot. And there was another guy that I lifted weights with, and he was a horse blacksmith, I guess we would call him.
It's a weird job.
Yeah, what do they call him now? It's a different name, but blacksmith is like, he does like the shoes of the horses.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make some extra cash on the weekend, so he started working for Harley Davidson at Brian's. And he was like, walked in one day, and he's like, "Do you like motorcycles?" And I was like, I've always wanted to have one. And even then, at that point, I always thought sports bike. That was my mentality, because I'm not going to be caught dead on a geezer glide. Like, they still hold that name. And I was like, there ain't no way I'm doing that. And he's like, listen, we have a couple like bikes that look kind of sleek and whatnot. And he's like, just stop by. He's like, I'll be there. This was Friday at the time. He's like, I'll be there tomorrow morning. Just come and check them out. And I walked in, and he's like, I have a leftover here. It was a V-Rod. It was a 13 V-Rod. And he's like, just sit on it. And I was like, I looked at it. I was like, it kind of looks like a sport bike. It had that big 220, I think it was a 220 rear tire. It was black and red. The tank was beautiful. It was liquid cooled. And I sit on it. I turn it on. At that time, again, I've never really been on a motorcycle like of that nature before. So I rev the engine, and of course now I know that it was silent. But to me, it was like, oh my God, this is awesome. That's a rumble. I was like, I want this. He's like, all right. So I literally bought the bike that morning. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a class. He was like, well, you can't ride it home because you have to be licensed to do it. So I took a course in Paterson, New Jersey. And we were talking about the ghettos earlier. Like that was.
Oh, you took the motorcycle safety course in Paterson.
Yeah. And it was pouring rain for 2 days. It was like 35, 40 degrees out. So again, I've never like done this motorcycle stuff. So I went out and I got the Milwaukee chaps, and I'm all like bundled up in my big old oversized coat.
Milwaukee chaps. What are those?
Milwaukee leather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're just huge because I was wearing jeans and sweatpants and leggings underneath.
The Harley starter
like,
pack.
I want to be like, yeah. What's that video? That one guy that was like, what is his name? Like Badass Billy. Like, don't make fun of me, guys. Like, you know what video I'm talking about?
Sounds familiar.
He's like sitting and his buddy's recording. And he's like, you're going to be prepared to get into a biker fight. And he's sitting there, no, man. And he's like, just take a pool stick and pretend you're wrecked. But if you could picture that guy, I wish I knew the name of it. But the YouTube video is hilarious. But I literally looked at that. I took the class, and the class was really useful. So if anybody like getting into riding for the first time that kind of just wants to take the test because they don't want to take the course, they've ridden dirt bikes or whatnot, they feel comfortable on two wheels, or if they don't, they just want to take the test to ride the motorcycle. I highly recommend taking the course because it taught me a lot. And I still go back to methods that they taught me about when I forget how old I was. But so I remember going on vacation, and Brian's Harley delivered my bike while I was on vacation. And then I was like starting to get like super excited. I got home, and of course there was snow on the ground because I think it was February here. I plowed the driveway. The roads were just plowed. I took it out. I start going down, this was Brandon Road at the time. I start going down Brandon Road. I make like a right turn, and I like kind of like almost lost it because again, from what we took on the course, we drove like a moped looking thing.
It was a 250 Suzuki.
Was it? Is that what we learned?
So you
on?
and I took the same course. You took your class in Patterson at Biggie's Toy Box.
Yeah.
And was a blonde lady or one of the instructors?
I had two guys. One was like a Hawaiian looking guy.
Yep. And the other was like a skinny dude who was a cop. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, we
That's
took
hilarious.
we took the same course, and when you did the driving section was in
that little parking lot.
parking lot.
And it
Why
had
did you go all the way to Patterson?
That was in Fairlawn.
It was all they had that was available.
There weren't many that were available. Wow. So you had New Brunswick, and New Brunswick used to get sold out a lot. And actually, Justin.
What year is this?
So I bought the bike in 2014 in the winter time.
Yeah.
So there was stuff here at that time.
You couldn't always get spots because
Barb's had one.
Well,
Barb's was more that Barb's was like either
The
they
one
were sold
Carolyn
out.
did, which was out of a community college down by
Ocean County.
no, it wasn't Ocean County. It was down by oh dang, I forget, like Blackwood area. I forget what community college that was, but yeah, I mean that's because I did mine in 13 out of Barb's. So
Yeah,
so there's one in
whatever
Patterson. What was it like? Was it a dealership or was it?
No,
what was
no,
it?
it's an MSF course, a Motorcycle Safety Foundation
Okay.
course. So they did a couple of these. Patterson was one, and Justin, who you know, Justin, his father used to teach the New Brunswick one.
Okay.
That was at Bush campus in New Brunswick, and they were hard to get spots sometimes.
Okay, and I'm trying to think now. So the one at Barb's,
That's MSF too, though.
Were you able to get like
It is.
Yeah.
take the written there as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
maybe I think
Yeah, you did everything there, and then all you did was just take
That's
your
what I mean, 'cause,
documents.
you get the little permit.
Yeah,
and
then just take it to the DMV.
Yeah, that was the go.
The Patterson course was good though. I mean,
was a good
it was
course.
mostly cops who taught it.
Yeah, but those bikes were super tiny. So again, fast forward, here I am. I make a right on Brandon Road, and it's again there's snow on the ground. It's freezing cold, but I didn't care because I was so excited. That's maybe why I like cold riding now because that was like my
I
first
guess so.
ever. I pulled into the post office, and I was like sitting there, and I'm like, I can't find my keys. Where are my keys? Because I put them in the little side, and I turned it, and I was supposed to pull them out, but I thought because I don't know what I'm doing. I thought they just stayed in there.
Also, because you rode dirt bikes and the key
So
always
I'm like,
stayed in
here I
there.
go, first time riding my motorcycle, and I had my spare key and the main key on that. So I guess the weight of it kind of just pulled it out.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, now I'm like, I turn around, I start backtracking, I go to make a left, and again, I'm used to that little bike, so
At least it's still running.
I'm like, oh my god, the bike's not turning. I start leaning, and there's a huge it's where the asphalt always gets built up, or not built up, but like taken out. Like so there was a huge pothole. It was filled with snow and water, and I go right into it, and I drop my bike, and not 6 feet away were my keys. So I want to say it was like fate for me to do that.
No, that's
Be like,
nuts.
You're dumb, but okay, here's your keys. Let's not do this ever again.
Wow.
So
It was
I took it back
basically
home.
fate saying, "Go home, dummy."
Yeah, so
get
I
your
went-
keys and go home.
So I went home, and the key was all burned up, melted, and I put it in the garage, and I probably didn't ride it for like, I want to say 2 or 3 more months until the weather started warming up. And that year, I didn't take it out that much because, again, it really wasn't super comfortable. It was fast in like a straight line, but I would only like kind of bar hop with it, and then I was over it. And then my buddy would just keep following up with me like, oh, how's your bike? I was like, it's good. And then in 2018 came around, I started like sitting on the geezer glides. And I was like, all right, I can do one
He
of
means
these.
road glides, street glides, touring bikes.
And
for those of you that don't know what he's talking about.
so I go up to Brian's again, and I test rode like it was like a 99. Did they even make Ultra Classics back then? It had the works. It had a windshield that I couldn't even see over, but I liked it. It was comfortable, and I was like, all right, I can do this. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I was like, I don't really ride that much. So like a couple months went by, and I'm like, I think I put 7,000 miles on my bike when I eventually traded in my V-Rod. And that's when the new white models came out in 18 with it was the Bonneville Salt Pearl. So it really caught my eye, and I was like, this is great. And then of course I look at the price tag, and I'm like, I work at a gym. Like this is before UPS.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
or no, it was 2 years into UPS. Sorry, but I still didn't make a lot. Like I still was
Yeah.
only making like $19 an hour, and the bike was I think tagged for 28,000. And I'm like, I can barely pay my bills now. And then who I was with at the time, just kind of like talked to me. If you really want it, you should do it. Maybe it'll curb your enthusiasm to want to ride more. So I sat on a street glide first because I liked both of them. Again, I didn't know everybody had street glides back when I was looking. So that was the first one I took out, and I took it out for maybe like 15 minutes. And the guy that was my buddy, Craig, rode the road glide, and we eventually switched. And as soon as I sat on the road glide, I got to one traffic light that was maybe 10 seconds away. And I said, this is what I want. So went back, signed the papers, walked out with the road glide.
Nice.
And that's when I really started putting on, like, I couldn't get off the bike. And I was trying to get like over the baseball thing, and motorcycles really took me the depression out of baseball. Like, hey, you need to move on. And this is like a new journey. And I started riding just like I tried to get to every show. I started meeting all these different people. And every vacation I had, I took a bike trip. Every weekend I took a bike trip, and I was laying them down. I put on almost 75,000 miles in about 2 years.
Wow. That's a lot.
And then I started wanting to build the bike to this performance level. And that's when my riding kind of took a notch, because I always had problems.
Is that what you call that? A notch?
Notch in
is that what you call doing 120 miles an hour at night through the Pine Barrens? A notch?
But it sucks because I love I got so used to it and never having problems with my bike.
Yeah. And
then this performance stuff comes out. And again, it's been out forever, but it was kind of like the social media coming out. It kind of just pushed it, and you start following different things and people and trends, I guess, was. And I was like, I want to do this. So again, I slowly started doing it, the motor, the cam, and then shit just started hitting the fan, and my bike would be down for 2 months, and I'd have to save up to fix it. Mm-hmm. I'd get it back on the road, and then something else would happen. So it was just like one thing after another. So my riding since I traded in that bike, which I thought that bike towards the end of its time was a nightmare, this one's 10 times worse. Yeah.
So for those of you that, this is your first experience with Sam, he's the joke for those that know him is that his bike is never up and running. It's just always has something wrong with it.
It's a disaster.
It's, he rides hard, but it's mind blowing to the rest of us that, we can't figure out what the heck is the deal with Sam and his motorcycles. Something's always broke with it. I give him credit. I mean, he rides it regardless, even, unless it just won't run. He went on our Baggers and Brews group ride that we've done, for the last couple of years. And what you were like leaking a quart of oil at every stop. And
that was bad.
He had to put cardboard under it and was adding oil. And this is just, a day run. Like we went out for fun.
People were getting sprayed with oil as he was passing.
Sprayed with oil.
I got to know though, like, what is the drive? Like, is it not enough power?
I don't
like what is, because it doesn't stop. Like it's
well, what
it
is like, enough power? Like what is?
I think it had like my white bike with, again, that was just cam before eventually I took off the heads, but that was I made that a 124. But even before that, it was just a 107 with a 468 cam in it, and it had power. Again, not what this bike has. And then I went up. I got the 131, but that just turned out to be the disaster. But that's just the way Harley makes it. And I knew when I got the bike that the problem with this bike is going to be the lower end. And eventually
it went.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it happened at a really bad time because I was going down to Daytona, but I had the right insurance. They replaced it, put a new one in, but then I had the same thing was in the back of my mind. Well, it's going to do the same thing. And what happened? It did the same exact thing. So that's when I was like, all right, I'll drop down in the cubic inches, but the one that Moonshine built for me actually ended up having more power than my 131 with, I think I had a 590 cam in it.
So you're saying sizes and everything?
Sizes and everything.
Yeah, well, you can tell by those shorts.
It has a little bit more bells and whistles in it. But the power's there. It's just, I can't even explain the problems that I have anymore. And people will like message me, and like bike builders like that I have become friendly with, and they just don't. They're like, some of the stuff that happens to my bike, they just don't see. Like Mike from Get Lowered, he was just like, I don't understand like how
that happened.
And then he looks at my bird nest of wiring up front, and
Yeah.
The wiring is interesting. I think the bike was much more interesting before you had a fairing. I think it was definitely a conversation piece at that point.
It was.
And, I mean, anything with a headlight like taped to it that does, probably 150 miles an hour plus.
Headlight and a t-shirt.
It was
the big T-shirt. That's what kept
conversation piece.
everything together.
Strange, man. So what is it like? What is it that draws you to riding now? Like, what do you love about riding now?
What do I love about riding? Actually, I've never actually been asked that question, I don't think.
Because obviously, to do it as much as you do it, you love it. Like you said yourself,
Yeah.
like you typically anywhere you go, you take the bike unless there's some crazy reason you can't.
Yeah, I think honestly, and I don't know, this could sound cheesy to most, I don't know, but you meet a lot of different people and you build friendships that you never thought that you would have. And it's weird because you only see these people like maybe once, twice, 3 times a year. I want to say max when you go to these shows, and you meet them and another event will happen somewhere across the country and you could possibly run into that person. You end up staying with these people
no doubt.
and they just become the lifelong friends. So I think it becomes much more than riding at that point. Again, it sounds corny, but to me, I love meeting the different people that I see. Like that's how I met Jay from Left Lane. Right. I happened to go, like this was a trip that was unexpected. It was the one weekend, the week where I went to Laconia the first weekend and then I followed up the second weekend, but I ended up making a trip. I went to Laconia and then I shot down to the Smoky Mountains by myself just because I wanted to ride. And I literally slept because I got into Tennessee so late. So I slept like on the side of a mountain. I had my tent that I pulled over. I slept for maybe 5 hours. And then I started riding and I had no idea where I was going. I knew I wanted to go towards the coast to hit 95 to get back up. And all this stuff on social media started popping up. It was the first Bikes and Brews Barbecue.
Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue in Arkansas?
No, it's
there's one in South Carolina, North Carolina. There was one.
No, Virginia Beach. Sorry, it was originally in Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
I think that it was at like some local brewery, and it was a small event. And I knew
Bikes, Babes, and Barbecue.
I think it's
Was it Brews?
Bikes, Brews, and Barbecue because it was
Barbecue?
it was held at a local brewery to them. So I started seeing all these posts, and there was a couple of people that I knew. Again, they were like, I had nothing to do. I had no idea where I was going. I was like, F it, I'm just going to go there. I went there. I met up with Travis from Outcast Culture and talked with him. And then I ran into Jay, and me and Jay became friends. And then I headed back up the coast, and a couple friendships that I met from there have like kind of blossomed. And yeah, so to me, I think it's more like I met you guys through motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And we become, I think, pretty good friends at this point.
Yeah, I think if you'd have told me from that first night at Prohibition, if we'd all be sitting here like 2.5 years later or 3 years later, whatever it is, doing a podcast.
Well, if I remember correctly from the time at podcast or the time we saw him at Prohibition that day that you got punked. I don't even think we spoke. Like
George came up to me.
I said hi to him.
Yeah,
I think I gave you a head nod. I didn't really we hadn't really talked yet.
Did I even shake his hand?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
You were
because you came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm George from Baggers and Brews," and hey, nice to meet you. Yeah. And we kind of just that's when you like walked off, and then you guys started filming, and then stuff hit the fan.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I was too busy mean mugging that dude until he left to focus on anything. That guy was.
But then after that, where did we?
So the story is this guy, yelled at me basically for filming bikes. For people that don't know, he was like, people don't want their bikes filmed, and I'm like, it was like whatever. But it was also kind of shady because there was a club there, and there were a lot of dudes wearing club T-shirts but not club colors. So, and you're definitely someplace where you don't know the environment. We've never been at that bar before. Yeah. I didn't know. And
they were kind of fairly new at the time. I think that might have been like their first year. The bar has always been there, but as far as ownership
was new.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I think it was tough to gauge the club situation. You didn't know who was one. I didn't know if that guy was at the time because you don't know. Yeah. I mean, we realized when he pulled his bike out that he was clearly not in the club because he could not navigate a gravel parking lot.
Holy crap! He almost
looking like a cripple
leaving the parking lot.
I mean, he was almost comical. I was like, really? Like, So
And he was the one that was.
Yeah.
he was just trying to
Just trying to be a hard ass in front of everybody.
it
I think
was-
he felt like he had an audience, so he wanted
There
to
was
be
a
in that
decent
crowd.
amount of people there that day.
Yeah, there was.
There were, and the dudes whose bike I was filming was tickled that I was filming his bike. I mean, it was a cool little sporty chop, and he had this gas tank where he had these basically these hollow points through the gas tank.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cool looking, it was a home built, kind of home modified, not a home built. I hate using that word built, but a home modified, old Ironhead Sportster. It was a cool bike. And that dude was like happy as could be. And then this guy got kind of mouthy. And I think a lot of people who were there a couple of people probably had the same inclination. If somebody's trying to just start some shit to get a response just to.
I'll never be able to
and
wrap
he
my
did
brain
it.
around it.
It was like
Instigate.
real shady how he did it because
It was
you
real
were
suspicious.
you were recording the bikes, and I was way back further, kind of recording the overall, kind of recording you recording the bikes. And so he kind of addressed you, and he was up on the deck, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I think you
thought
took it as
I thought it was a legit
What are you
question.
doing? Why are you filming? Kind of a thing, like curiosity, but he was just being a dick. And you said, I'm just filming for whatever. And he's like, and then he kind of went into his, well, people don't want you filming there. He got all lippy and nasty.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then I was kind of waiting to see George's reaction because I'm like, well, if George wants to get feisty with this dude, then let's go. But George was like, all right, man, whatever. And he kind of just was like, fine, whatever. Not trying to make a big scene. So he was like, I'm just going to go put the camera away. I'm like, all right. That guy needed to be smacked, man.
Because I think not soon after that, that's when that bar, I'm sure, it had to do something with that night, but they did the no color thing.
It was no color.
That's racist.
I thought it was no colors that night because nobody had jackets. They had T-shirts, and that's kind of like the
Yeah, I don't know. I
that's
don't recall.
like the club workaround because I noticed that right away. Always the club workaround is usually T-shirts instead of wearing cuts. So there were a lot of club T-shirts there.
What's your thought on that?
It's the same thing.
That's what.
It's the same thing, but
Thought on what?
Again, I'm not.
Right.
This is a no disrespect thing towards people in
Yeah.
motorcycle clubs, but it literally to me is the same exact thing as a cut.
Yeah, I mean, in that, it's not because I feel like in the club culture, a cut is sacred, and a T-shirt is a T-shirt. But I feel like when you're in the environment of going into a business that's specifically stating no colors, it's the same.
It's the
thing.
same thing. You're repping the same.
I wouldn't want to be there anyway.
Yeah.
If a bar was, and again, most of them don't go to places that are no colors, just because
Right.
I feel like the real ones, it's like I want to wear my cut. I'm proud of my cut. More power to you for that.
Yeah, and most
they'll
of
stay
them
away.
aren't going to go someplace that won't let them wear it. They'll just be like, F that place. We're just going to shun that place because they're not taking their cut off to go to
Exactly.
a bar. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Which
I
is what you should do. If
I wouldn't
I
pay
would,
my
I
money
wouldn't either.
to support somebody that doesn't
Right.
appreciate who we are, and the culture.
The only people I knew club that I knew guys who would take their cut off were some of the Blue Knights guys if they were riding solo.
Now the question to cut you. Sorry for cutting you off.
Mm-hmm.
Do they take it off? Because I heard this is a thing too. I've actually been with people that this is a thing. Do they take their cut off in the parking lot, or do they ride down the road, take it off, and then come back?
Oh, I
don't know?
that I don't know because the Blue Knights, if they were riding solo, they would not wear a cut,
Right.
just because they become
It's a safety.
they become a target. So
Definitely.
that was always a thing with them, and because a lot of those guys, I rode with a number of those guys early on because the Blue Knights a lot of them kept bikes at Biggie's Toy House in Patterson, but a lot of them kept bikes at their clubhouse, which was only like 2 blocks away. And one of the guy who taught me how to ride was an honorary member. But
Honorary member.
Yeah, so
of a club.
if you
How's that work?
So with clubs like the Blue Knights, some clubs are obviously hurting for membership. I mean, like you and I could go down and be a member of our local VFW because our father served. Seriously, we could.
It's not really a club though, aren't they? Like
No, but it's just like an honorary membership kind of definition, the same thing.
they're like RCs, aren't they?
So could I be a VFW since my brother serves?
I bet you could.
We should do it. We should all do it.
I'm not doing it. I feel weird doing it. I'm just not doing it.
I feel weird.
I didn't earn it. Like, I don't know. I
Too many
just,
rules,
I feel-
man.
Yeah, the rules.
I just feel like, but the Blue Knights Club had a number of honorary members, so you had to have family who was law enforcement. And the guy who I learned to ride with, his son was a Patterson Patterson Cop. So, but those guys they could ride.
I know. Going back, like, I feel like you should have to earn it. Like, if you're in a military branch based or police officer or EMT, that kind of status, like, I don't believe, like, again, what I just brought up is my brother's in the military. Well, I should be able to do it. Like, no, you got to earn it.
Yeah, I would never.
But I guess some of these clubs would die.
So yeah, like so what do the Nom Knights do?
That's what I mean. Like some of these clubs would die.
You basically formed a club around something that's it's got a life expectancy, right?
Well, I mean, clearly there's guys in the Nom Knights
right.
who
who
were not Nom.
Change the rules and make bylaws because I mean you're going to run out of people that were in Nom.
Yes, like it was novel when we came up with it when we were all young and out of Vietnam and ride motorcycles. But then what happens? You know, a generation later.
The knock on the Nom Knights. It's just
it's
I don't know what the rules are now. They obviously have bylaws because you see young guys in them that clearly
didn't serve
in Vietnam. So
well, and I feel like a buddy of mine's father was in the Nom Knights for a while. And he was military, I believe, but he again, like, I don't think he was like in Nam. He served during Nam. But he prospected for the club, I think, in his 60s.
Can you imagine?
He was like a 60.
Could you imagine
64-year-old
I'm
prospect.
sure that was some serious prospecting back then.
You got some 30.
Really do it now.
It was like not long ago. Like it was maybe like within the last decade. Like he prospected.
It was probably harder back in the day. No,
that's what I'm sure. I'm sure they had like the paddles and everything. I feel like it was like a fraternity for
paddles.
I feel like it's
sounds like your clubs too.
If it's anything like the rest of the world,
some
I'm
of
sure
those,
it's softer
you hear
now
like again, these are just stories, so I can't say if they're 100% accurate or not. But guys wouldn't get patched in for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
It was until they felt like.
Most of the time now it's like
ready.
a year, but some will even get patched in before a year, and then some, hey, you want to be with us? And they slap a vest to them.
Yeah.
So
depends upon. I feel like it depends upon the motivation of the club, and it depends upon a lot of things. I mean, I feel like the more involved the club is in illegal activities, the harder it's going to be for you to get to the inside.
Are we going to get in trouble for talking about clubs?
I don't know.
I don't know.
General stuff.
I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert.
So go back to where you wrapped around to opinions. Me. So what got you into riding? When did you start? You're next. You're next.
That's effed up. You give him fair warning. That's you always give him special treatment.
You want him to go first?
No, it's fine. My intent was always to buy a sailboat. Honestly, like I grew up on boats and I grew up around boats, and I was always. I was on a motorcycle at a very young age because my father had a little Honda Fat Cat trail bike, and I just, we actually dug up a picture not long ago of me like sitting on the tank of that thing. We always were like,
how old were you at that time?
He had me on that bike probably 4 years old.
Damn.
Riding around the back trails of, country lakes on that bike. So not unfamiliar, to bikes, but it was never, I mean, I don't know. I worked in a hospital, worked around a lot of bike accidents. I saw a lot of stupid squids come into the hospital.
Did that bother you?
A little bit, it's.
Did it get you thinking like, what are these idiots doing on a motorcycle?
Hold on. Let me interject because I
can't even finish my story without you interjecting.
You can go back to it. You said something that I have a question on because I see it come up all the time and I still don't. I've been riding for however long I've been riding. What's a squid?
A squid is somebody who basically has a motorcycle accident so bad like they're just flopped.
Squid. You didn't get that?
Yeah, there's like no structure left. They're just.
I've heard it used a million times, but I never never made any sense as to what the context was.
They're just jelly. Like you hit a barrier doing 120
because I thought
miles an hour.
I thought the way I heard it, I thought it was more in line with a rub, and I'm like, I don't get like what's a squid?
Rub is rich urban biker for those of you, which is
either,
also
anyway,
stupid.
Go on with the chlorophyll.
So yeah, I mean, you would see some of that, and but then, regardless, I was like my brother-in-law was talking about getting a bike. I knew my buddy Dennis rode, and he had a Road Glide before the Rushmore model Road Glide.
So how old are you at this point?
This is 2000. I bought the bike in 2009. So I don't know, that was early 30s.
Okay.
And like 33 or something like that. So Stacy walked into the office one day, and I'm looking at the Harley website, and I said,
"Oh God, here we go, baby."
I said, "I think I'm going to buy a Harley." And she looked at me, and she turned around and she walked right out of the room. And that was
She didn't give you like a.
Nah, that's how that conversation went. She just turned around and walked right outside, right out of the room. Boop, gone. So.
And you continued to look.
So Harley had a trade in, trade up program, which was actually it's a great program. So you basically
Well, it's gone. So
it's gone, but you bought a bike and you got MSRP if you traded it in within a year. So
they ran that a few years back with the Sportster, didn't they?
They did it again. So my first bike was a
Okay.
Sportster. I had a 1200 custom, black and orange,
on a little bus.
21-inch wheel, black and orange, 1200C. So that was, I didn't know what the heck I was getting into. Like, you know,
I feel like we all start like that.
you know, I didn't
literally have
know.
no idea
You
what
bought,
you're
a
getting into.
V-Rod. You sit like a clam on those
You
things.
do.
And I did love the V-Rod, but I wasn't comfortable
It
on
wasn't comfortable at all.
So and the V-Rod muscle was out that year in 2009. That bike was nice. So went out to Tremonton and bought this Sportster. They gave me a great deal because I went to
What was a
Bergen.
Sportster in 2009?
I don't know.
$6,000?
No, it was like maybe 8, like 7,009. Yeah. Because it was the 1200C. It wasn't the.
And that was out the door?
Yeah,
Or
it
that was
like,
after.
I feel like that was like out the door, and then I bought a warranty on top of that. So no, the warranty was extra. Didn't do anything to the bike except buy backrest that probably never got used, and had the bike for a few weeks. Learned to ride the bike. Took the motorcycle safety course after I bought the bike, similar to you. And I took a ride. I had a day off of work. I'm like, I'm going to ride up to Orange County Choppers. So I'm like, all right.
That's New York, right?
It's New York, and I was in North Jersey. So I get up, and I'm getting like, I don't know, I got like 3/4 of the way there, and my ass hurt me so fucking bad. The bike was like a vibrating mess. You couldn't even see out. At 55 miles an hour, you could not look into the side view mirrors because they were just like, blah, 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 blah. Whole fucking bike like shook on the highway. The thing was it was great from like 0 to 50, and anything above 50 was just not a good time. So
This was a stock seat too, right?
stock seat.
This is
and,
before like that.
like-
I rode stock forever with the V-Rod. It just stayed stock. I didn't know anything
like,
other than
your ass
stock.
is so numb. It's like you could be shitting yourself and you could not know. Like that's how bad. That's like I was like, this is not good. So I went down to Bergen Harley the next day, and there was this 2009 Crossbones sitting on the floor, and I sat on that Crossbones and I was like, this is the one. That was it. I was like, it was like Street Bob or Crossbones.
Because you thought that was going to be a more comfortable ride.
Well, it was
By how much?
by a lot.
I actually believe by a lot.
It was by in a different way.
I rode that bike.
But it was by.
Did you really?
I think, but here's the thing. So I only rode that Sportster for a few weeks, and then I went right to a Springer. So I didn't know any better. You know, I thought all
You were
bikes
young and
rode
innocent.
like front end was like a rock and hit every bump. It like chattered your teeth. Like I thought that's the way riding motorcycles was. But I love the Crossbones mostly because you didn't see a lot of them on the road.
They're still popular now.
They and
coming from sale.
in parts of the country they are popular.
And they'll go for like $15K.
Yeah, I got
some of these.
good trade-in on mine, so it was nice. But I called Stacy from the dealership, and I was like, "I'm at
Wait,
Bergen."
so what was her reaction when you got the Sportster?
She was all right with it because she grew up on
So was this-
motorcycles.
I didn't
this
know
like
you
a-
were gay.
Was this like a dinner table conversation? Like, so she walked out of the room because
No,
we kind of missed that part of the story. Because I want details. I want details now.
I wore down. She was good with it because she grew up on motorcycles.
Okay, so there was no like
There was
you're
no
being dumb.
There was no fight. There was no you're being dumb. It was you can't have a boat and a motorcycle. You can't do
Okay.
that. That was kind of like the line. But
So the boat kind of went,
the boat kind of went by the wayside. Yeah.
and that was like a kind of easy transition. Like,
Yeah.
all right.
So I mean, I'm a sail, and I sailed competitively for a long time,
Okay.
and I definitely miss that in the summer. But it's I called her from the dealership, and I was like, "Listen, this is what the payment's going to be."
So did she know that you were going to the dealership?
No.
So this was you. That phone call was the first time that she knew.
Was me buying the Crossbones, and I said, "I'm leaving the Sportster here because I need you to pick me up." So, yeah,
You couldn't ride it home?
Huh?
You didn't ride the
They had
Crossbones home?
they had to prep the bike.
Oh.
And, yeah, it was the days. Like Bergen's a dealer that like takes time and preps a bike. And
I hate that. I told him when I wanted
Yeah,
my
that's
white
what
one,
they
I
do.
said, don't clean it. I don't want it detailed. Give me the bike. I want it
they,
now.
they detailed. They did a good job. And then rode the bike home. You know what? About a week later, Labor Day weekend.
Wait, so with the phone call?
2009. Oh yeah, she was not happy. She was like, "You doing what?" I was like, "I trade in the Sportster. We're if this is the payment, like I'm good. I'm trading it in right now." Yep, donezo.
So it was just like click.
6 weeks. I was on a Sportster for 6 weeks, and I traded the
How
bike
many
in.
miles did you put on that thing in 6 weeks?
Not a lot. I didn't make it to the
100.
1,000-mile service.
That's why I feel like most people, like, again, it's the starter
Mm-hmm.
bike, and people always tell you not to do it. Like, don't get the sport. Like, I always tell people like that
not
are
a starter bike.
kind of like, I guess I want to say like I get 20, we'll go 25 and above. They want to get a motorcycle they've never ridden before. They're like, oh, maybe I'll get a sports to learn. Like, no, start with a soft tail.
Buy a Softail.
Buy a soft tail because they're still, again, they're not super comfy, but they're bigger than a Sportster.
Yeah.
And it's just not so much a jump the gun because a Sportster, as soon as you ride it, like you rode your 6 weeks, people get a Sportster, ride it for a week, and they're like, I need something bigger. And it's always a problem. Like, I need something bigger. Well, you should have got a soft tail.
It's crazy. Like when you go into the dealership, like if I go into the dealership now and I like throw my leg over a Sportster, I'm like, God damn, this bike is
I
small.
can't. I don't even want to throw my leg up.
It's like it's so small. It's like it's crazy. But when you first get it, like how big was the V Rod when you first got
it was
it?
like it was mammoth.
Freaking thing was huge.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
thought it was the most powerful thing in the universe.
Listen, you're 6'4" mammoth. I know that Softail Heritage was a small bike. Like
All
I
right,
get it.
so you buy the Springer, comes to you 6 weeks later, and then
I kept the Springer. I moved down here with the.
Wait, you had to wait 6 weeks?
No. I only.
no 6 weeks for the Sportster.
Yeah, 6 weeks of Sportster. Bought the Springer, and then I owned the Springer from 2009 to 2000, probably 18.
And how many miles did you put on that?
Not a ton.
Yeah, you just don't want to put miles on those bikes.
But it was different riding because in North Jersey, I feel like we were in the mountains in good riding and not that far of a distance. I feel like if we went out during the week, you know, we rode out to get dinner, it just wasn't that far because North Jersey is so much more compact. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I could be up into Orange County, New York in 20 miles. You know, so it's like there were very few days where, you know, we were out putting on the miles. Like I feel like in South Jersey, things are so much further apart. So when you go out for the day riding, you do ride further. It's a weird thing, but never used to go around and went to Roar of the Shore every year. That was like the rally. That was like my big trip. That was my big trip, man.
That was the Super Bowl.
I used to take it was my biker Super Bowl.
I remember kind of feeling like
that's
that.
how Sam. That's how George and I
That's how we started riding together.
not met, but got reacquainted.
Yeah, that's how we started riding together. So like my Roar of the Shore, I would take off all week. I would like listen. Yeah,
Did you stay down there?
I would take
Or
off
did you
all
just
week.
do the
I'd come
trip?
down and see my parents for a couple of days, and then I would head down to Roar of the Shore, and I'd meet like my buddy Dennis and like some of the guys who were down there, and you know we'd hang out, you know, for the week and go get seafood and walk around at vendors, and we was leaving there one year, probably the year before I met you, or maybe 2 years before that, and bad weather. It was like shit weather. And Dennis is a FedEx driver. So, but FedEx Freight. So he was a FedEx Freight guy. And I'm like, dude, like just stay the day, or like let the storm pass and like ride your bike to FedEx and be there like by work in the morning. Like this weather it was bad. I mean, it was like that kind of shit we had yesterday here, like bad. And he was like, nope. Been riding. He was riding since he was 17. He's riding his whole life. He goes, I've ridden this shit a million times. I'm going. And I'm like, all right, well, call me when you get there. So I'm not getting a call. He's not picking up his phone. His son calls at like 6 o'clock that night. He's like, listen, Dad went down. And he went down getting off the parkway onto Route 20, probably because he came off the throttle. The road was slick and the bike just went out, and broke his hip. And had a tough time with the hip recovery. At the time, I don't know, he was like 58, but had a tough time with the hip recovery to the point where he never got on a bike again.
Still to this day.
Still to this day.
Wow.
Yeah. But he broke his hip. He had surgery. And then he was in the hospital and he got dizzy and the nurses dropped him and the hip popped out and he had to have surgery. So he had surgery like 2 or 3 times in his hip. It was like, he was like, F this, it's not worth it.
Yeah, especially at that age. That's a no-bueno.
So I kind of thought he would buy a bike again. And it was tough because I really like riding with the guy, but everybody's got to do their thing. And it's, he's the guy who got me going to Road to the Shore. And then I think probably the next year, this guy posts on Facebook.
Big Facebook guy.
Going to Road to the Shore. I forget what the post was. Anybody going?
I was like, I just kind of got the bike and I'm like, going to Road to the Shore because I'm just learning about this thing. It's all new to me. And I'm like, anybody going? Let me know.
Was that your first season with the bike?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, shit.
And he was like, I'm going. And I was like, Carolyn, who's George Giacomo? She's like, we went to high school with him, dummy. Like, we did?
Nice.
I was like, yeah, dude. All right, if you want to go, sure.
So
the rest is history.
And that's when you started?
That was your first season, right?
Because what's that? We're in 14?
No. So it would have been 14.
Would have been 2014.
2013 is when I got my license. And I don't really have an exciting story about why I got a bike or how I got a bike.
Did you want to ride your whole life?
I had I just never even a thought most of my life up until the point.
Did kids change that?
The kids had nothing to do with it, man. I mean, I got married, I had kids, and I still had never even really thought about or had any interest in it.
Isn't it crazy how interested you are now? Like, and I look back, I had absolutely zero interest.
Yeah, it was. I didn't have anyone in my family that rode. I come from a military, family background. No one in my family rode. None of my relatives, nothing. No friends, nothing. Just as I got, a little older, like it started becoming kind of interesting to me. Seeing just bikes out and just passing, bikes. And I talked to, Carol and I talked about it a few times, and she actually was like interested and said that she wanted to ride, and she had rode. I didn't ride as a kid. Like I didn't ride dirt bike. I didn't do any of that stuff. She did, coming from where she lived out here in Chatsworth. She rode dirt bikes and stuff, and had a moped and all, stuff like that. I didn't. Just as I started getting older and had the kids, like the kids weren't an issue. I wasn't one of those people that was like, I got kids, I'm not going to ride. It's just like, I never had the interest. And then all of a sudden it just started to spark and started to get the interested and talked to her a few times about it or whatever. And then, where I was working, a few of the people that I worked with, like Austin and stuff, had bikes. And, so that really started, piquing my interest, looked like fun, looked cool, looked like a good time. And then finally I was just like, I think I want to do it. And she's like, well, if you want to do it, so I actually went, and I had never ridden. So I was like, well, I think the thing that held me back, like I wanted to do it probably from my early 30s. But what held me back was I had never ridden at all. So it was scary. Like,
yeah, it's definitely scary.
I don't know how to ride, right? Like it's not a bicycle.
You think it would come easy too. Like,
right.
Oh, it's literally like riding a bicycle, you think.
But it's like, I don't want to, like I know a lot of people that just rode bikes and never like took a course or never even had a license. Right. I was like, nah, I don't want to do it that way. Like if I'm going to do it, I want to like at leat take the course and learn how to do it and feel a little more. I didn't feel confident enough to do it. Like just go buy a bike and ride, so, so sometime in 2013, I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I got on the Barb's website and registered for one of their classes. It was in the summer, like July. It was hot as balls, and you had to wear all that gear to go take the course. And they had the little buells, and I'm like fat guy on a little, like a circus bear on this tiny little buell trying to learn how to ride this thing. But like it did come very natural, like, I don't know, like wasn't like complicated to me. Like, some people might struggle with it or whatever, but it was like just very natural. And I really liked it, and passed the class. And like I said, it was the Harley one. So you do everything right there at Harley, go get the license. And then I got home and I'm like, I gotta get a bike now. So I started looking online, and she gave me a very tight budget.
What was the budget? Hit me with the budget.
Well, there wasn't a number. It was like, oh, I like this one. Nope, too much. I like this one. Nope, too much. So I was like, okay. So ended up seeing this Heritage Classic in 1998. Softail Heritage Classic at Ocean County. And the funny thing was, like, when I was back then, 2013, I wanted a classic looking Harley, right? Like at that time, the road glides and street glides, I'm like, that's hideous. I don't want that. Like, and it wasn't because, oh, it's a geezer glide. It's just like, it's ugly. Like any of the stuff with fairings and stuff, I'm like,
didn't scream American to you.
That didn't scream Harley, right? Like, I'm like,
I completely agree with that though.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want old school looking. And the heritage that I found at Ocean Harley was that old school looking, you know. And now looking back, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? Like, it had the studs on the bags, you know, the leather bags, studs around the edge of the seat.
Tassels hanging down the handlebar.
It didn't have tassels on the handlebar, but whoever owned it before was a huge live to ride to live guy.
Yes.
Yeah, hell yeah, bro.
So every one of those accent pieces on the, you know, everywhere had live to ride to live. I'm like, the handle, everything had that. You know, it was chromed out, and then the live to ride.
How many miles were on the bike for the live to ride guy?
I want to say like 20.
Yeah,
I want to say it was somewhere in the 20 ballpark.
All right.
Bike had an identity crisis though.
So 10 years old and had 20,000 miles. That's live to ride.
Yeah,
exactly.
But listen, it had an identity crisis though, because when you looked at the bike had a few of the live to ride things on. I remember that, and then it had like the studs like along the bags, and then it had 18-inch apes.
Well, they didn't have that when I got it.
But when I that
was my edition.
That was your edition.
So that was the beginning of my transformation.
So it was studs, live to ride, 18-inch apes, and I was like,
so
who's this guy?
So I got it right, and I'm like, this is just like it had stock handlebars on it, right? And you know how.
What were the heritage? Were they
Same.
like the wheelbarrow?
Yeah, wheelbarrow. Yeah,
buckhorns.
Yeah. So I did the handlebars. I got the 18-inch Burley apes, and I got those put on there. And then I was starting to feel like, all right, now this bike is getting a little cooler, right? I got rid of the stock seat, and I bought a Solo Mustang seat, right? So now at this point, if you took off the studded saddlebags, it looked pretty cool. It looked kind of, you know, like it was trying to be a cholo bike a little bit, you know, minus the fishtails and stuff. So like it had a really cool color. It was like a red, and it was a two-tone, which
what was the exhaust?
I'm not allowed to say this now because I'm a huge anti-two-tone guy.
It was red and gray though, right?
It was red and gray, and the gray was such a, like Harley does this with some of their stuff, man. That gray was cool because it was gray, but in certain angles and certain light, it had like a purple tint to it.
Was it like pearlish or no?
No.
But it was the flake.
But it was like, it was just cool, man. And it was a cool bike. But when I realized that bike wasn't for me anymore was after probably maybe a season or two after we hooked up and went down to Wildwood for Road to the Shore,
and we're getting passed by those baggers, and
we come home. We're coming by one. It was 5-speed, right? It's 5-speed. So you get on the Parkway and you're trying to do 80, and that thing just vibrated the crap out of you, and like you were fighting to do 80 on that bike.
And you got your wife on the back?
No. A few times, but no. That was what led to her getting her own bike, because that wasn't enjoyable for her. But we're coming back one of the, like a season or two later, cruising up the Parkway, and I'm like fighting for my life with my 18s, a big freaking wind sail, bikes vibrating like crazy.
What kind of shield was on it?
No shield.
So there was no shield.
Neither one of us rode with shields.
No shield. No, it was no shield. It was cool.
You were really wearing it.
Yeah. And then here, and I'm struggling, fighting, like just trying to get up the Parkway. And here comes this dude on a road glide, and he's kicked back. His woman's on the back. He's laid back. He's got a foot way up high. He's got one thing on, like he's got one on, and he must have cruise on because it was like his left is on. And he comes cruising by me, and I look over, and he looks over, he's like basically, dude's half asleep. He's like, head nod. And I'm like, I want that. I'm getting that. So that, like right after that, like I started, like I was just looking all the time online, looking. I'd show the wife one. She'd be like, yeah, whatever. And I just keep showing her. She's like, I still owed a few, I still was making payments on that thing. And then I found the Beard Glide, the Red Road Glide over at Appalachian Harley online, and I showed her, and she's like, that's really nice. And that was kind of like it. She's like, that's really nice. And then a few weeks later, I'm still looking, and it popped up again, and I showed her, and she's like, that's, I like that. That's really nice. I'm like, she's like, we should go look at it. And I was like,
Oh,
seriously?
Get in the car.
Patrol.
Get in the car, woman. Get in the
Really?
car.
So we ended up doing like the next weekend or whatever. I don't know. Might not have been next weekend, but sometime really quick we went, drove out there. It's like 2.5 hours away. We looked at it and it was on consignment. So basically the dealer didn't own it. It was one of their customers was selling it through them. And it was freaking sweet. And I had him start it up. When he started up, I was sold. Like, it sounded amazing. So I'm like, and it was kind of high for what like I was trying to pay.
what was it at?
Like 20, maybe 24, something like that.
Yeah, that is kind of high. For,
Was it that much in 16?
Yeah.
Were they that
Well,
much?
it was 2017 and it was a 2016. So it was only a year old.
Okay.
Yeah.
It only had about $6,000 on it, 6,000 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
The guy he told me the guy who owned it was a long time customer there, had bought 7-8 bikes through them. And he had bought that brand new in 2016, had them do stuff to it. So all the work was done there at the dealership. He went on a road trip with his buddies out to California with it, came back, found out his wife wanted a divorce. So he had to thin out his herd because he had like 8 bikes or something like that. So he was selling like half of them. And that was one of them. So I'm like, well, listen, Carolyn and I talked about it. We, went over to the other side of the store and we're like trying to hash it out, what we could afford, blah, blah, blah. And went back and told him, would he take this? I think it was like maybe 21. I think I said, will he take 21? He was like, let us call him. We'll see. They called the guy and he was like, yeah. So I was like, done deal.
Wow.
Let's go.
Oop.
Yeah. So
Sweet.
That was a Sunday. Couldn't do anything because of financing. Everything's closed. So I had to come back the next week and hash out the financing and all that stuff.
Did you trailer the Heritage out there? Is that what you...
I did.
Yeah, okay.
What did they give you for the Heritage?
Not a lot.
What did you owe on it?
Yeah.
I think I don't remember, but whatever they gave me covered what I owed. And I think it gave me like $2,000 down. Something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot at all. I didn't owe a lot, but it wasn't a lot total. They might have gave me, I don't even, it might have been $5,000.
I feel like those Evos weren't pulling a lot of money at that time either.
No.
And which is, it's crazy that you say that when they started it up, you love the sound of that bike, because I love the sound of your Heritage. I feel like
What was on the Heritage?
That was a carbureted Evo.
I did too. I did like it, but it was,
Yeah.
it wasn't that the sound was better than the Heritage. It was that it was the bike that I wanted and it sounded good. I'm not saying it sounded better than the Heritage, because the Heritage had a really awesome sound.
Cool sound.
It was loud.
I remember the first
it had
time we
pythons on it. It had like short pythons on it.
What are Pythons?
there was an old exhaust company. Yeah. Python was
Python was its own brand. They were
it
just
was its
like,
own brand. Yeah. I don't think they're
Python.
around anymore. Yeah.
It was loud.
we gotta bring them back from the dead. We got to resurrect them.
I'm telling you, it was
I asked
cool.
Austin, man. He was like, I don't like riding behind you. It's too loud.
Well, he was on a Suzuki or whatever, Kawasaki at the time.
Kawasaki.
Well, I remember the first time we got up on the Parkway, and I was used to riding with guys with baggers. Like, my brother-in-law had a Softail, but I was used to guys who were on Road Glides and Road Kings and all this stuff. And you got up onto the Parkway, and I'm in fifth gear, and I'm like,
You had 6 though, right?
I had 6, but I only needed to be in 5th.
I was giving it all I got.
And I'm like, what's up with this dude? I was like,
Live to ride, baby.
You got to remember too, though. Like, so I got my license in July. I bought that bike in September. I rode it a little bit, being a brand new rider,
and it sat all winter.
and then winter came,
Yeah.
and then summer rolled around. I started riding it, and then we hooked up to go.
So
I basically had a season, of riding experience in general, on a 5-speed.
And at the time, I was
you
like,
had been riding.
I was in like 6 or 7, like probably 6 or 7 years in. Yeah.
So we meet up to go ride, and so like I was freaking as newbie as it could be on a 5-speed on the Parkway.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't
if
know.
it was me,
I didn't know.
If I was you, I'd have been like, "F this dude, I'm not riding with this guy."
I didn't know. I was like, all right, well, everybody rides differently. I'm going to sit back here in 5th gear. And
That's how I am. Like, people get their license and they'll start riding, or they're like, listen, I can't really ride like you. I'll get in the back and do what you want to do. Because sometimes, especially if you like the person that you're riding with, you don't care.
Yeah.
Like some people are stingy. Like I hate riding with that guy. I can't bear it. If you're riding with a buddy,
Well, if you like the person, you're going to
Yeah.
help them get
and
experience.
if they're a beginner, go to the front, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy it.
Well, we know from personal experience that even if you like a person who doesn't ride real well, they're not always open to suggestions. Not everybody's open to critique.
That is true. I agree with that. Do you like getting critiqued?
He loves it, actually.
I get critiqued all the time. Slow the fuck down, mother effer.
Listen, if you got a critique or criticism, constructive, I can't even speak.
Constructive criticism.
That's fine. But if you come at me with some bullshit that doesn't even make sense.
I wasn't actually talking about you, actually.
No, I know. I'm just going off his question. Like if you come, I've had somebody that, someone we know, like we rode up the highway and then we got off and this guy wanted to give me all these, I was leading here's when I don't want criticism or any kind of opinion at all out of you.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Don't even give me a peep. If we got a big group of people and we decide we're going to go here, and then it's like, all right, who's leading? And it's crickets. Nobody wants to lead, right? Nobody wants to lead. So finally I'm like, all right, F it, I'll lead. I don't want to hear shit out of anybody. None of you wanted to lead. None of you wanted to step up to the plate. Don't, when we get to where we're going, come up and give me suggestions on how to lead.
I have to deal with that. I hate leading, and I'm the leader. Like I'll go on group rides.
We're in the same boat.
where I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And I managed to always be the leader.
It always happens that way.
And then we'll come to a stop. Well, you're going a little bit too fast. I'm like, I'll sit in the back. I don't even know you people.
Okay, cool.
I just came for the ride.
I'll roll to the back, bro.
I think I've led, like, of our group rides, I think I led one ride to LBI one time.
Do you like leading?
I don't think anybody likes leading. I don't care about leading, but what happened is when we got to where we were going, 3 people had suggestions for me, and 2 people had suggestions for me, and neither one of those 2 people are people who have ever led a ride ever, right? They've never led a ride ever, and one of those people, when I rode with just the 2 of us, still didn't was like, yeah, you got it. So, but everybody's got, but when we pull over with him, the same group of people, nobody's got suggestions. Burt could pull into a parking lot, do a figure 8, 2 motherfuckers and a thumbs up before he finds a parking spot. And everybody's like, okay, that's cool. Let me do that. They're like, what the fuck you doing?
That is speaking of the leading and people hating it. Some people, again, very few people that I've met like to lead. I hate it. I always end up doing it. But speaking of Daytona coming up, there's it's called the Performance Hangover Show.
Yeah.
And it was originally when it first started, it only started 3 years ago. It went from obviously Daytona Bike Weeks in, where's it at? In Orem?
Daytona?
Or is it
Ortley Beach.
Ortley Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So the ride goes to, or where the show is, Palm Bay. Mm-hmm. And it's an hour and 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And there would be again, these are guys that are building these spare no expense
rippers.
You get the guys literally 80, 90, 100 grand in their bikes. All of us come together and it's here's a destination, type it in your GPS and you fucking roll. So you got all these guys, and you see videos pop, they've been popping up more recently now just because it's coming up. But guys are doing 130, getting passed by another Harley, and they're just and there's no leader. It's just get to the destination, but you're all riding together.
No, you're not.
You're not, but you are.
You're all riding to the same destination.
You're on the same road together.
But they all still kind of hang out with each other.
Yeah, I get it. But while you're riding, you're not together.
I don't do it personally. I think it's awesome.
Was that the thing I saw where it said, I accept challenge or whatever?
Yeah.
That you put on it? Okay.
Yeah, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Because this year it changed because it's been getting so big over the last couple of years that the other dealership it was really tight last year. And you were talking about a Harley dealership. That's how big this thing is going. So they moved it to Orlando dealership because Orlando's got a little bit more room.
Listen, if we're going to keep this podcast rolling, we're going to have to address one issue, and that's that your mammal toe's looking at me, and you're going to need to adjust that thing.
He said his mammal toe.
I can't even pull their
Holy
fucking
cow.
to my hips.
I think there's got to be a class action lawsuit against UPS for those uniforms, bro. It's got to be.
Are we better
It's
now?
basically sexual harassment what they put you in at those things.
And I'm like directly.
Holy crap.
Legs are just over.
Like I'm trying to focus on what you're saying, but it's peeking at me.
I
But
set,
do you ever-
I
do you-
set those chairs up for a reason.
Yeah, you did. But do you ever get again, we're going back to like the leading scenario here. You met my buddy, Steve, Fast Talker Steve.
Oh my god!
I thought I
Yeah,
met two
that has the
fast
street
talker
glide.
Steves.
When he's one of the leaders that will go, he'll rev his engine, he'll be flying, and all of a sudden it's brrr, he'll back off and brake, and he'll go brrr, and he'll back off and brake, and you're just like stop.
So
and
what's
go,
he
stop
like?
and go.
Wants
And
to
he'll
go
be
fast,
like,
but then get scared.
I don't
What's-
wouldn't say it's scared. It's just like how he rides. So I always tell him like,
Set the-
Steve,
set the
when I
cruise
ride with
control,
him, I'm like, you will never lead a ride that I'm a part of. Like your ass.
Have I ridden with this guy?
No, I haven't ridden with him. I don't know.
You rode with? Didn't you
that
ride with
said
him?
me.
You rode with him the one time.
Well, I'm trying to figure out. You had two friends named Steve. One of them was the dude at Ocean City last year at breakfast.
The talker.
That's a talker.
I don't think I've ridden with him. I rode with the guy that we had.
How'd you not ride with him if he was there?
Because you guys took off.
you guys didn't wanna
to do
hang out
your
with
own
us.
Thing. They want to hang out with us.
Yeah, you and Blue Road.
So who was the dude who?
Blue Road Glide.
Yeah.
Who's Blue Road Glide?
What's his name?
Tommy.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god!
Right, he was with him. He was
Blue
there.
Blue Road Glide guy.
Just say New York.
Another guy that does not know how to do group rides.
Yes, I would agree with that.
But so with the guy the day that I got in my accident when we had breakfast, was that guy's name Steve too? The guy that sounded I thought was Irish. Remember the
is
guy?
that the cop?
I thought he was Irish, and I was talking about like where are you at from
Wait,
Ireland?
so we're
and
talking
he's
about
like-
the Hamilton
He's like
dinner.
no. He was
the
like
Hamilton Diner.
yeah the
Yeah,
silver coin.
that was the cop.
So what's
That
his
was a
name?
different one.
But his name's Steve.
Dan.
Oh, okay. I thought his name was Steve too.
That was such a fun day.
Was it though?
Outside of that fact, that was a fun
This
day.
freaking guy.
I had
That was a great day.
Take
You
your
crashed
camel
your
toe and
bike.
get the hell out of here, bro. Party's over.
I thought we.
No, it
I'm
was a
going
good day.
outside the fact. I had that was one of the most fun days I had all summer.
It was a great day until the end.
Yeah, until the end.
That
But
was a
it
good
was
time.
like I had
But that guy. So how do you know that guy?
a group ride. I just posted like to meet up at Fielders if anybody wanted to go,
Dude, who
come
does
join.
that? Like, do you
And
have a
he just
death wish?
and he just showed up with
That's
another
really weird.
older guy on a he had like a 90 or no, I think it was early 2000 Road King, and he had like a early it was a 110. What was the 110? Cam. I don't know. Whatever. A 110 Road King. It was built. Again, he was older. He was in his like mid 60s, almost 70. And then Dan was the cop, and he was younger. And he's like, who's running this group ride? And I've never met him before in my life, either one of them. And I was like, I'm leading it. And I was like, I get all like kind of like, you don't know what you're about to get into. Like I was like, hey, we kind of like ride pretty fast.
Oh, is this a Rippers Only crew?
Because this was nobody shows up, so it was just me, Bobby. I forget. It was me, Bobby, and maybe two other. I think Cody showed up, and there was one other person that I ride with that rides.
Okay.
I have to know. Is Cody a ripper?
Yeah, Cody rides pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He
I'll
was,
give it to him. He rides dirt bikes a lot too, but he knows.
Wasn't he
caught
blocking on
fast.
one of the group rides you did?
I think he was
the one that went to
attempting to.
Bulldogs. I thought he rode pretty decent.
That group ride. That was one of my favorite group rides we've been on. That group ride was a trip.
The
Which
one
one?
that was his ride.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So it's
That was a good ride.
we were
Which
like
one was that?
Burt was like
The one you you'd planned it and
Yeah.
it went to Bulldogs.
Okay, yeah.
And your speech before
Roger,
the ride was
Roger met us at that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Your speech before the ride was like, we're gonna go here, here, and here. When we get on the parkway, whatever happens, happens. That was like your pre-ride talk, right? And we got on the parkway, and this, I don't know, 20-year-old, 21-year-old girl.
Listen, I'm
on
looking
her-
at George. I'm like,
Yeah, the
I'm
little-
not.
Yeah.
I'm not ripping. Like whatever. We'll ride normal.
Yeah, I'm not doing this.
We all stayed together though for the most part.
No, we
it was
didn't.
the,
No, we didn't.
100% we didn't.
No, we didn't.
what?
So
We hit the parkway.
The parkway.
and you guys were like,
But then everybody stopped after
gone.
the parkway.
Yeah. I mean,
That's what I mean.
We stayed together, but we weren't together on the parkway.
Exactly. But that
We hit
was
the parkway and all hell broke loose. And I'm looking at George and I'm like, I'm not trying to get crazy like these guys. You guys are all doing $120, whatever you're doing. I don't know. And I'm like, I'm doing 90 and I'm like, I'm good, right? I'm good. I'm looking at him. He's good. And then this chick on her dad's bike or whatever,
Yeah.
On her 98
she's like
fat boy.
23, little blonde, comes on 98 fat boy, comes ripping by us, and I looked at George and I was like, "Oh hell no!" So I'm like, boop, twisted throttle, and freaking flew by her as close as I could to her. Like, no, that's not working.
And we had one of our followers, Ken.
Oh, that poor guy
Ken
was on like a 96 freaking
he was like
Ultra Glide or some
He
shit.
was like, yeah, on a 96, like a lecture event, and he was like, we're like, we'll see you, buddy. It's like that's the fastest I've ever gone on my bike.
Yeah, it was.
But so going back to that, you talk about like opening up and your buddy Ken, who's like probably has never fucking experienced that. So I meet these two guys and like, again, I'm judging a book by its cover. Like this guy looks like a grandfather. And then you get this little short guy and I walk outside and I see he has just a Road King. And the other one was driving like a fucking like a early 90s Kawasaki. And I'm like, I had to explain to him, like, this is kind of how the ride's going to go. You know, I started off like 60, 70 miles an hour. And those two, the old guy and his buddy, they passed Bobby and they passed Steph. And right up my
Steph
up my
was
tail.
on this, huh?
I think so. Or I don't know. I forget. I forget if maybe she wasn't. I don't think she was. Okay. But it was Cody. So Cody dropped back and Bobby dropped back.
Steph, Cody, same thing.
And then I'm like, all right. So I take it up to 90. They're right on my tail. So, and then me and Bobby were talking through the comms and I was like, I guess we're doing this. And then I just open it up and they are right up my ass. And we were doing like a $120, $130. We get to the first stop and they're like, we've been waiting to meet guys like you. Everybody that we ride with does 5 miles under the speed limit. And Bobby's looking at me like, what the F just happened? Like, cause our first stop was Sidelines in, I don't want to say it's Mullica, Maze Landing. Have you been there?
Sidelines.
I've
been there.
Yeah, it used to be called something else and it changed over to Sidelines.
Yeah.
It used to be called like Fielders or not Fielders. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But they're like they were the joy in their faces, and I was all fired up. I'm like, F yeah. I'm like, all right, boys. I said we finished the beer inside. We go off the next spot, and again, right from the get go, we were all opened up, and they were right behind. And then we get to this one gas station, like three stops in, and the Road King is just like spewing oil. I mean, and the guy's just looking at me. He's like, yeah, this thing hasn't been run like this in a long time. He's like, it'll be all right though. Right. And me and him pull out and he pulls up to me, like pulls up next to me. And there was a long stretch. I forget what the road is called. And he looks at me and he goes, and he starts hauling. And I just see his handlebars. Like we were doing it was like a $132, $133. And his handlebars just start, cause he has stock, like he's got nothing. The motor's built, no stock suspension front. And I just see his handlebars like this for like 3 seconds and he backs off and I fucking just rip by him. And we come to a stop sign and I'm like, dude, I thought you were going to die. He's like, me too. He's like, but that was awesome.
That was Dan.
This was I forget this guy's name. He texts me all the time. I just don't have his number saved because I forget his, Dan still texts me, but he also, cause he always wants to ride because he just like, he gets enjoyment. I'm like, I've never met somebody like him, especially at his age.
That's great.
Because literally he was
This guy,
spitting
Dan,
oil.
dude. We get the breakfast over there at the diner and he shows up with, Steph, right? Steph and Dan and then, Bob and his wife were there. And we're having breakfast, and this guy's talking, whatever. He's talking about his bikes, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, I say something like, so you're from Ireland or Scottish? And he looks at me like I got freaking 12 heads. And I'm like, what? Like, and he's like, I'm from Michigan. I'm like, get the F out of it. This dude, he's got does he not have a funky accent? I'm like, this dude is Irish. He's 100% Irish. Nope, he's from Michigan.
He does look Irish too. He really does.
It freaking blew my mind.
You missed that one, huh?
I'm like, you're kidding. You're bullshitting me. You're from Ireland. He's like, no.
But he talks, man.
He does talk.
He will
find some talkers, bro.
I do. I don't, because I don't talk at all.
What?
Me? I don't talk at all.
After like a year of hanging out with you, you talk, yeah.
Is he serious right now?
I don't know.
No, it takes him about a
Why
year.
do you think we had you on the podcast because you don't talk?
I don't think I talk.
We're an hour and 23 minutes into this. You've been talking the whole time.
Well, I don't know what it is.
It takes Sam about a year and some Twisted Teas to warm up to you, and then he starts.
I'll definitely talk after some Twisted Teas. That's for sure.
Twisted